bring in our guest speaker, Dr. Nana Bonsu. Before I bring him in, I'm going to quickly tell you about his research. Dr. Nana Bonsu is an assistant professor in responsible business and sustainability at Birmingham Business School and deputy program director of the undergraduate business management suite in Singapore. His research and teaching center on sustainability policy, governance, and the framework driving the transition to a responsible and low carbon future. His interdisciplinary work explores circular economy models, net zero transitions, and environmental health challenges in low and middle income countries. With prior experience in the mining sector and the UK local government, Dr. Bonsu integrates policy insights and social innovation to advance research on sustainable development, cleaner technologies, and global value chain transformation. So thank you, Dr. Bonsu, for joining us today. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks very much, Ade, the organizers, Visca, and each and everyone present today. So I'm going to build up from the presentation from Professor Arthur. So going 360 on sustainability, the first slide kind of shows how the sustainability narrative, especially looking at the context of the 3 Ps when it comes to the people, the planet, and the profit, has kind of become failure in the past several decades. And if you look at the diagram on your right, that is the Sustainable Development Report that was released a couple of months ago, 2025. You could see that the world is nowhere near when it comes to achieving all the SDGs. Now, looking at all the 17s, and you could see that we are not kind of on track by 2030. Now, I'm going to kind of, because it's kind of open, try to focus on a particular sector. So this particular study kind of look at the transport sector, which kind of explores the challenges and opportunities when it comes to decarbonizing the global value chain in support of the transition to net zero emissions. And we know that the decarbonizing transport, whereby adopting EVs kind of technologies, is becoming crucial when it comes to the global transition to net zero emissions. So this particular study, it was based in UK, and you could see that the transport sector emissions contributes to about 26% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And then if you look at the market too, you could see that it's also kind of increasing. But then when it comes to the life cycle kind of emissions, looking at it from the global value chain perspective, you could see that it kind of contributes about 56.4% as compared to the internal combustion engines, that is looking at the petrol and diesel cars. So this kind of begs the question, how green are the EVs? Now, looking at the decarbonizing the global value chain, you could see that it kind of helps require addressing, looking at it from the mining sector, looking at the manufacturing, and then when it comes to the recycling within the value chain as well. So that is the context of the study. And if you look at the diagram on the right, especially this is the UK context, you could see that the transport sector kind of contributes to the emissions as well on the high. Now, the objectives kind of aim to examine the obstacles by adopting EVs and achieving net zero emission targets. And then when it comes to the emissions reduction strategies, trying to analyze approaches and opportunities to reduce emissions within the global value chain, and then to kind of evaluate some of the policy mechanisms, one that could support the decarbonization of the transport systems and ensuring equitable transitions, looking at the sustainable transport technologies. Now, these were some of the key kind of findings. And then looking at it from the STEEP analysis, that is the social side of things, the technological, the economic, the environmental, and then the policy side of So looking at the social, you could see that there are some kind of misconceptions about EVs and what they aim to do. And then there's also kind of a significant skills gap in the green kind of workforce. The technological side, you know that EVs are much more or less trying to help reduce tailpipe emissions, but it kind of face kind of challenges when it comes to the battery innovation. And then it requires kind of emerging kind of technologies such as looking at things like blockchain for traceability. Now, looking at the economic side, see that UK faces kind of investment shortfalls, and I don't think it's only UK alone, more countries as well, when it comes to the dependence on foreign supply chains, particularly from China. Now, looking at the environmental side, you could see that the GVC emissions remain high due to the mining and the manufacturing as well, when it comes to the processes that are involved. And then trying to look at the political and then the policy side, there is kind of a lack of looking into policy coherencies and then the geopolitical tensions that threaten the resilience of supply chains and the achievement of a just transition. I think when that was it last week, if you look into some of the policy from China, and then when it comes to access to the critical raw materials, some of the challenges in there in regards to other countries. Now, some of the challenges that were kind of found is looking into the high emission when it comes to the mining and the manufacturing stages. And then you also have the winners and losers as well. So for instance, if you look at the diagram on the right, with all the critical materials from, let's say, lithium, cobalt, graphite, you could see that the transitioning is kind of happening at the global north, whereby the critical raw materials is coming from the global south. So you could see that the demand for critical raw materials is kind of worsening environmental and social problems in resource-rich countries, and it's kind of driving green extractive kind of issues. And then there's also kind of fragmented kind of governance kind of frameworks, looking at it from the sustainability standards point of view. So based on this, some of the challenges that came up were kind of the need for systemic kind of reforms, i.e. when it comes to international cooperation, which are kind of essential when it comes to decarbonization challenges that is experienced within the global value chain. Some of the opportunities and pathways, looking at it from the circular economy adoption, when it comes to the critical raw materials, to help boost resource efficiency, and also applying standards such as the ISO, and then making some policies like the carbon border adjustment kind of mechanism, the CBAM kind of program, which is based in the EU to enhance accountability in decarbonization. And also looking at it from the green skills kind of development in kind of promoting knowledge sharing and develop green skills to fill workforce gaps. And then we also look at the resilient supply chains when it comes to building strong supply chains with strategic partnership and domestic investments. Now, one of the areas that normally the sustainability kind of policy kind of ignore is thinking through the planetary boundaries thinking. Now, if you look at the planetary boundaries thinking, you could see that 5 of these kind of looking at 9, they are all 9, but you can see that 5 of these comes into the value chain when it comes to the EVs global value chain. Things like climate change from the mining side of things when it comes to emissions, and then when it comes to the electricity generation for EVs. And then you have things like the biosphere integrity, looking at it from the habitat destruction, biodiversity loss to mineral extraction. And then there's also land system change when it comes to deforestation and land degradation for mining and infrastructure. And you have issues with water use when it comes to the water-intensive processes in mining battery production. For example, if we take a critical raw mineral like, let's say, the lithium, and then you also have disruption of nutrient cycles from resource extraction and waste. Some of the recommendations, it looks into the low carbon infrastructure investment within the global value chain. That is investing in renewable energy and low carbon, and then sustainability assessment as a mechanism to evaluate the full global value chain sustainability impacts when it comes to the EV transition. And we also talk about the policy alignment with the ESGs and SDGs as well. And then when it comes to creating kind of regenerative models and thinking, especially looking at restoring ecosystems and then looking at renewing resources. So in conclusion, you could see that we kind of need kind of a holistic kind of thinking when it comes to this transition to EVs, addressing issues within the mining sector, when it comes to manufacturing sector as well as recycling. And then also promoting resilience and policy coherence that supports effective global EV deployment, as well as embedding environmental justice to promote social equity in the transition to low carbon transport. Then we have the sustainability in the value chain, which addresses meaningful climate action and then social benefits. Now, then it comes to go back into the 360 again when it comes to the people, planet, and the profit. And I know that most of the times we kind of look into the SDGs. But the first thing that we have to kind of ask ourselves is when it comes to accounting for sustainable development, reflecting on what Professor Arthur just made mention of. It's what is to be sustained. And these three key things comes up, should be nature, life support, and community. And for the development side of things, is it more about the people, or is it more about the money, or is it more about the society? And they're looking at it from the future perspective too. The question is it now or in the future when it comes to the next generations, thinking about the intergenerational and then intragenerational equity. And then you look into the creating a very good balance, especially if you want to go 360, looking at the 3 Ps, whereby you have the profit side of things, and then making sure that whilst you are doing well, you are doing good for the community and the environment. So bringing everything together, you could see that most of the times when it comes to the transition to EVs or some of these kind of technologies, policies are developed in kind of silo thinking, which kind of open up new opportunities of when it comes to in future kind of oriented thinking, whereby we look into different scenarios. And I think we have to overcome the linear way of thinking and have to understand the interactions within complex systems. And I think some of the presentations made mention about what systems thinking could look like. So thanks very much for your time and happy for any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bonsu. We're going to, I'm gonna bring you back after the last presenter. Dr. Ellen Oyeka will present next, and then I'll bring back Professor Bilar, yourself, and Dr. Ellen for Q&A session, if that is okay. Yeah. So thank you so much for your wonderful presentation.
Okay, thank you.